Hi guys, my name is Serge and today I'm gonna speak about native JavaScript modules. And before I start, let me represent myself. And actually I'm participating in development of JavaScript and CSS specifications, their discussions, share my knowledge in just like different magazines like Smashing Magazine and just like on Twitter, on my blog, and also just like writing the specifications themselves and being involved in the development of browsers and specifications. I'm usually know why some decisions actually were made and why something went different ways, yeah. And today I want to share with you this particular stuff. Usually I'm involved about in discussions around JavaScript, CSS, Houdini, if you heard about this. And actually, today, as I said, we're speaking about JavaScript modularity. And let's try to understand why in general we need this. First question, yeah, just like whoever used native JavaScript modules, just to understand. Okay, natively, without Webpack, without everything, yeah? Perfect. Wonderful. For everyone else, just like guys, I will describe, and for you, hopefully you'll find something new, and don't hesitate to ask questions in the end. Anyway, so why we need modularity? Remember 1996 JavaScript started and yeah, actually we could write code this way. It was terrible, yeah? Code readability was terrible, yeah, just like you put everything in one file, dependencies management just didn't exist, yeah? Architecture was terrible. So that's why we need modularity, which is obvious, yeah? So first attempt was quite easy, yeah, just like it was external JavaScript files. So if you remember, just like you could include separate, files, and just like, okay, in one file you put some vendor stuff, polyfills, in second file you put one component, third component, and okay, some code separation was there. But code reuse, it was scrappy. You could reuse some functions, something else, and the worst part, as you remember, it was global scope. You just like put in one variable in one file, like variable delay, and then the same variable you put in the second file, you just overwrite in the same variable. Terrible, no scopes, and simple solution was there. You just use self-invoked functions. Remember, you wrap everything in a function, which provides a scope, but it's terrible, it's crappy. So it should be something better. Second attempt, which is actually first kind of modules attempt, it was AMD, async modules definition. So if you remember how it works, actually it provides you module scope. It says, okay, wrap your module in some construction like define, say what is the name of your module, and then put the functionality of the module. After that, in some particular other place, you can again use the same construction define and just like say, okay, here is dependencies of my module. It's crappy. I will explain. So I remember just like 5 years ago, I had interns, and I described it for them. I spent half a day describing how it works all together, and guys said like, yes, we fully understood. Second day they came to me, Serge, I actually don't remember how it works. Can you describe once again? I described once again. What you think after weekends? It was the same. Serge, we have no idea how it works. Yeah. So syntax was crappy, terrible. Yeah. Just like even for myself, when I prepared this presentation, it was like, oh shit, how it works. Yeah. So, but module scope was there. You could reuse modules, and you had finally some kind of dependency injection. You had tooling, remember, require.js, this thing which worked at that time now looks a bit crappy, and bunch of cons was there. So confusing syntax, I already told you this story. Dependency management, it was absolutely crappy in terms, just like if you needed to put some order, good luck, it was absolutely wonderful. And multiple requests in era of HTTP1 is absolutely bad idea. So you had to use something like RJS, which put all this together, and it was also a bit funny. And also you could use this with Angular, just like which required some additional effort, because Angular module system was kind of prepared for this stuff, to be honest. Yeah, first Angular, I mean, of course. And finally, we remember Node.js came and said like, here is a standard, CommonJS, use it, and we use it by these days. Remember, just like use require.js, you can just like load any module, you can do anything, everything synchronous, you don't have any problems. Logically, it works super. So it's supported in Node.js, yeah. It provides you all this scoping, all this just like you could reuse modules. You have good tools. You have Node.js itself, you have Browserify, now it's Webpack, everything works, yeah. There are a few cons, of course. It doesn't work in the browser. just doesn't work. You can write by yourself, but it will be blocked. You block in the request, so just like block it Ajax or fetch. It's absolutely terrible from the point of view of user thread. So not supported in the browsers, and no asynchronous module load. So at some point in your application, if you want to load something asynchronously, okay, you can write your own just like loader. You can provide all this, but again, good luck with fixing problems with these asynchronous loaders and whatever. So a few cons still there, despite we still using, still valid, yeah? Still works in Node.js. And finally, remember this ECMAScript module. So I'm more than sure. So everyone knows the syntax, yeah? Import, export, all this stuff. Guys, you use it? Yeah, I think, yeah. It's we made this, very, very obvious. Everyone who comes from Python actually uses the same syntax. Now for 2-3 years, even 5 years, for 3 years, we all using this syntax. It's straightforward. We will discuss in more details how it is, but it's really straightforward. All this is called ECMAScript modules. So about terminology, let's put something there. ECMAScript modules, also known as JavaScript modules, native JavaScript modules. They also known as ESM. They also known as ECMAScript 6 and also known as ES6 modules. So all this together, one thing. We're very bad in naming, So finally, let's take a look what we have. Pros, you have all these module scopes. You always can provide some more scope for the module. You can reuse module, and my favorite feature is multiple named exports. You can just like export and import a lot of stuff from one to separate file, and they are deferred by executed in order how they appeared. I will describe this on the next slides. What does it mean? It supports both static and dynamic loading. So just like this is static, this is dynamic loading at some point in your application. We'll take a look into this syntax a bit later. And it is standard. It's standard, which works, we know this, and very straightforward. All the tooling like Webpack, Babel, or Lab works with this. And maybe you can ask, okay, so but search here, does it work in the browsers? So just like, is it supported in Node.js? We will answer these questions, of course. I will answer just hopefully in the way that you would like to use it. But let's take a look, as my father says, let's take a look into the history. It was in 2015, June, ECMAScript 2015 standard published. You remember, everyone was excited. Cons, let, proxy, all this stuff. You remember everything appeared to be in one standard. Everyone was excited to use. So take a look. In 1 year, middle 2016, all the major browsers, all of them, plus Node.js, they implemented 100% of ECMAScript 6 features. All of them. Cons, let, proxy, I don't know, just like imagine promises, whatever. Everything was green. Everything. Except they tricked it. It was like everything except modules, ECMAScript modules. So native ECMAScript modules was not there. So everything green except this, like, it's like surprise. So how and why? Let's try to understand what was happening. So, in June 2015, ECMAScript spec. Middle 2016, actually, everyone supports. And in fall of 2016, in autumn, actually, finally, HTML spec came and described how it works. You know what's the difference? In JavaScript spec, it was described. If you do import and you do export, it works. But how it works? Not my problem. That's why none on browsers, Node.js, nobody could implement this. They had no idea how to actually resolve all these dependencies graph, how to do all this stuff. Then a few guys from Google, a few guys from Safari, I also just like was involved in this discussion. A huge amount of people just were sitting together, just like and discussing how. It should be something simple, and we described a very simple mechanism how to do this. It was super crappy, but it worked. Of course, now it's a bit more advanced, but first version was absolutely crappy. So as only we described it, how it's all resolved. Take a look. As mushrooms after the rain, you see end of 2016. Native ECMAScript modules came to Safari immediately. Just like it's described, it works. Guys, implemented. By the way, who implemented this in Safari? Interns. It was summer internship, and they implemented this. So first implementation was also crappy, by the way. And then take a look. 2017-18 support landed in Chrome, Node.js, Edge, all this guys, everyone. And finally, May 2018. I remember my tweet. I was so excited. I was waiting for this for a few years, and finally, ta-da! That's what you have. So now, ECMAScript modules supported in all the major browsers, plus Node.js. So now we are here. That's why it's time. to start using this natively. And let's take a look why. Yeah. So let's compare once again this, just like module systems all together. So let me take a look as well. So module scopes actually available everywhere except pure.js. Yeah, we already described it. You can do some functions, but yeah, you cannot load properly modules. Tools actually everywhere except out pure.js. There are some tools. The most advanced will be in ESM. Of course, in Node.js is also a lot. And static modules, you just like there is no in pure.js there is separate files, but there is no modules themselves. Static modules are present in every module system. Dynamic loading everywhere except pure.js and CommonJS. In CommonJS, you have to provide your own tools. Clear syntax again everywhere except my favorite as AMD. Do you remember where I described the story about my interns? Even they were absolutely surprised. And this handy multiple export. Sorry guys, it's for me. I love this feature. It's only in ECMAScript modules. And come on, guys, you use Webpack, I'm pretty sure, rollup, whatever, yeah? Which means actually all this already works. So what's the difference? Yeah, why are we speaking about native modules? So what will native modules give you? So take a look once again. Node.js out of the box support. So just like it supports only CommonJS and native ECMAScript modules. Cool. Let's go Fuser. Browsers out of the box support pure.js and native ECMAScript modules. You see, ECMAScript modules still there. Flag for ECMAScript 6 feature. So you can use this particular flag, just like deliver how browser please work with this particular script as ECMAScript modules. And I will describe why. So just like, for example, async, await, and other stuff works in all the browsers which support ECMAScript modules. So you can just skip transpiling and just like set, just like man, just like please execute this module. Configuration. So my question, guys, do you remember last time how much, actually for big project, how much you spent for writing your Webpack config, yeah? Best case, it's 20 minutes, yeah? Worst case, days with debugging, with terrible. Worst case, I remember just like in one of teams with whom I work, spent 1.5 weeks till started to work, yeah? Not config, of course, but preparation, migration from AMD or other, bad things, yeah? And build. Even you spend some time on config, even Webpack rollup works. Every time you changing something, you wait until it's just like transpiled. Yeah. Best case, you have hot reload, everything works fast, but you still spending your time for config and build. You cannot get rid of build. So that's where native ECMAScript modules will give you just like huge push ahead. And before going forward, let me just like present you some simple system. So I created just like simple project with index.js and whatever. So let's take a look. In index.html, I just provided like type module. We'll describe why type module is needed with some application.js. In application.js, I'm just using static import. I'm using just like dynamic import. So everything what you use in just like and usually transpiled Webpack. So let's take a look if it works. Here is a file. I added some debugger. Where I added this debugger? I don't remember. In core.js, in application. So here is debugger. I want to debug. I want to show that now you can finally debug proper things. Not source maps, not something like, provides you ability to kind of debug what was in the source, but real source debugging. So sorry. When Chrome went crazy, so here we imported dropdown because it's static. So now the debugger, I can take a look into the dropdown. I have this console log, and I can go to actually this next step. So we have to load module, which actually model will load dynamically the import. So in model.js, we see that it will be exported the model. We're going back. Come into this file. Model is still undefined. Await in progress. We come in here. Model is defined. So you finally debugging the real things. Yeah, just like you're not doing some strange stuff. So just like even source maps, everything went just like properly set up. Source maps, my work actually absolutely in unexpected ways. So I'm not bullshitting you. It really works. So let's go off user and take a look what advantages it will give us. So first of all, how to include. I already showed you just like how to include. All the trick is in this particular piece. Script type module. That's everything what you need. So if you try your current script just to do import exports, your browser will say, no idea. No idea what you're trying to say to me. Type module will make this import and export work. Why? Because it's executed in the strict mode by default. We'll discuss a bit later. So this flag is required. Without this flag, scripts are executed in different way, not in strict mode. That's mostly why we needed this particular flag. They are deferred by default, so just like I will show on example what does it mean that they are deferred by default. And again, as I said, it can be used to deliver ECMAScript features. So for example, you can say modern browsers, even for Webpack, transpile everything except, async, await, maybe yet some just like new stage 2 proposals, don't transpile everything else, and deliver this with type module. That's it. That's your actually fun. And let's take a look once again to this export import, just like so. If somebody just like doesn't know, so export, you can export some variable and then import the same variable. This is a simple syntax which is described in JavaScript specification. Default export, it's the same as any other named, just believe me, it's just a trick to make it sure that it looks like default. So you can do stuff like export default and then default as some particular variable. So in general, there is a more handy way to actually say what is a default export. And multiple exports, something what I love the most. You can do one variable, second variable, some applications, some just like objects, whatever, and then just work with them. You can also just like take all of them, just like import in the module as an object, and then just like you have everything in this just like lib, whatever. And if you don't need to export something, just execute, you do import, and you are there, maybe for polyfills, maybe for something else, it just works. This is the syntax. And of course, these features, actually, let's discuss features. So just like what was added for you for free. Of course, module scopes. It's must be there. So every module has own scope. And of course, they have access to global scope. Makes sense, right? And imports, they are mutable by default. So that's the tricky part, just like that. If it as you see, when you import in dropdown, you're not expected ever actually to reassign this dropdown. So they are mutable objects. Don't try to reassign them. It's just provided to prevent you shutting your leg, to be honest. Yeah. And other features. So performance is very, very important in our applications. And of course, just like ECMAScript modules should be singletons. Like in CommonJS, in any other system, browsers, Node.js, they should be very smart. If you load in the same module twice or 3 times or whatever, it should be taken from cache already, just like pre-executed state, yeah? So in this particular example, I'm just importing 2 modules from 2 actually particular ways. So you see, one is like this way like dot components drop down, and second actually place, I'm just like providing different paths. But it's the same, absolutely same file. And I just want to test. So browser, are you smart enough to understand that it's the same file? Of course. It's performance optimizations. Browser will just like load this file only once. You see, just like it's loaded only once, and it will be executed only once because it's singleton altogether. So you see, just like first of all, it was returned the same module. Secondly, it was executed only once, not twice, as expected. This is performance optimization, which comes for free. Other features. Just like as in JavaScript, functions always hosting. Doesn't matter whether it's a function on this particular level, it will be available on any level because it's hosted and executed kind of first. Yeah, doesn't matter if you even put them in the scope at the very end. The same will be for imports. Doesn't matter where you put imports. It was done for just like, to make it a bit more handy. So just like if you put code for first and then imports, it will still work because browsers and actually any Node.js interpreter, it will just like move it up as functions. Just to make it a bit better. The crappy thing about static import, it can be used only on top level. You cannot put this, just like somewhere in your if or whatever. For this, you have to use dynamic import. We will, of course, discuss this a bit later. So why it's done? For performance, to be honest, because it should be, just like immediately browser should find out where is imports, where is exports, and put this properly. Again, for performance, to be honest, yeah. And differences. Of course, there are differences. One difference I already told you, just like it will be about execution in strict mode. Another difference, they're always following cross-origin mechanism. So this was not done for JavaScript, and it was a source of problems actually on security side. So everyone complained about this particular thing. So as just like as when you try to, for example, do AJAX request or fetch something from another domain, domain should allow you to do this. It's like it always adds something like allow access control our region or otherwise. Otherwise, you cannot do this. Absolutely same way is applied for ECMAScript modules. Again, for security doubts altogether. And it must have a valid JavaScript MIME type. So MIME type, it's just like if you put there an image, browser will not even try to execute this as a JavaScript, because previously we had big problems with this as well. So again, if the JavaScript MIME type is not text JavaScript or something valid, browser says, I have no idea. Yeah, just like I will not execute this. So in this case, for your Nginx or Apache or whatever, don't forget to say that actually content type is text JavaScript. And if you want to allow other, like domains to actually execute your scripts, don't forget this access control our region. Asterisk. Yeah. But be mindful, know what you do. Just ask your security department or security guy, there is always somebody. Okay, let's discuss this, just like execution order. So what I have here, I have four scripts with async attribute. I have 4 scripts without any attributes, just classic scripts. After I have 4 scripts with type module and 4 scripts with defer attribute. How they executed in order? What async attribute says? Async attribute says like, download me, just start downloading just immediately. As only I'm downloaded, execute me. That's what actually happening with async scripts. What is happening with classic scripts? Every classic script actually saying like, stop everything. Download me, execute me. I'm a main guy, and then you can go off user. That's what's happening. And what type module say? Absolutely the same as defer. Start downloading me immediately. So just like network priorities, just like medium or just like a bit more than medium. As only document ready, trigger it, start executing me in order if I'm downloaded. So that's why, the execution order, you see, first it was 2 async scripts because they were downloaded, then classic scripts blocked everything. After that was, like a few other async scripts, and finally all the module and defer scripts in order. What does it mean? They are still asynchronous, but they always executed in the order. So this interesting nature of ECMAScript modules give you just like a few tricks. I will describe, just like also which great abilities it gives you. And they are strict by default. Exactly why we needed this flag. So if you put such script, something like, it's like global variable, you see a equal 12. If you do script src, this guy, it will work. Browser will say it's okay. For example, if you say type module and try to execute this, browser will say no, I have no idea what it is. I'm throwing an error because it's executed in strict mode. Strict mode sets the rules how differently JavaScript executor is working. That's why we needed this flag, type module. Really, the nature of script changed because of this particular feature, at least. And also performance optimizations and security optimizations. So you cannot do some strange things like override, global eval functions. You cannot just like send 2 separate similar params. Everything what you couldn't do with useStrict. From good news, now of course you don't need to put this param useStrict to every your just like file. So usually Webpack is doing this for you, but now it's not needed anymore because it's by default in strict mode. And finally, let's take a look into this nature. So how they are still asynchronous, but still executed synchronously, and how it works all together. So as only a JavaScript interpreter, just like goes and sees this script type module, whatever, it tries to actually first load type module, which is just like entry module. Entry module might have a few dependencies. These dependencies might have other dependencies. It actually builds this particular graph of dependencies, huge one, yeah. And after it, every dependency should be downloaded. It should be parsed, and actually, finally, when you have dependencies, they are downloaded, parsed. What is happening? It's instantiation phase. In the instantiation phase, it actually finds boxes in memory. This export and import and put them together. So, but they still not, values are still not there. So a bit strange, yeah? So why actually only in third place it will be execution of every script, putting the values, whatever. As only I saw this, like my question was like, good idea, Lynn Clark, but why? But why not to put this together? For performance it will be faster if it was one particular stage. So the question is why? That's why. Yeah, I love this stuff, just like, so circular dependencies. It's always how to how to execute circular dependencies. It's usually usual questions for the interview, whatever. So, real world scenario, there is events and odds.js. So just like usually they use the same functions, but just a bit inverted, yeah? So real world scenario, this particular code, you see modules, these both modules, events and odds, they're dependent on each other. But the code itself is not dependent on each other. Only because we have separate evaluation and instantiation phases, only because of that, this particular stuff is resolved. So first, it reads the modules, and then it executes them, after these links are defined. So, magic, but that's why it's needed. Circular dependencies, just like if it's not something crazy, solve it for you by ECMAScript modules. And finally, let's discuss something you might not like. So, we got used to do this stuff, import, load, dash, whatever, and we love it. It's handy, it's wonderful. You cannot do such things with usual, with the first iteration we did for ECMAScript modules, you couldn't do this. Because this import, just like this URL should be full URL, which means absolutely, it's like either HTTPS, blah, 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 or it should be, relative URL with the whole path, or it should be, in the end, it should be always .js, whatever it's happening, and it cannot be dynamic. You couldn't put some variables there, just like you couldn't put this on, just like you cannot reuse something from Node modules properly. And okay, so what do? You could use some hacks with service workers. I spent a few evenings, I wrote something, it was terrible. Of course, service worker, intermediate step can just like take any just request and sort it. And it's terrible. So, of course, we sorted this. The proposal. The proposal is to use package name maps. What does it mean? Something what you use in Node.js. Node.js, by default, how it works. When you do import load dash, it knows, there is some, resolution order. So first of all, I will take a look in this folder. Secondly, I will go to the folder with Node modules and try to find load dash there, and blah, 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 blah. In Node.js, it's like it's usually one page. Everyone goes to try to understand how this Node.js resolution order works. Here is much more easier. You define this order by yourself. You can say, hey, browser, Node.js, whatever. Anytime when you're looking for a module and it cannot resolve this, look into my folder, for example, Node modules, and for example, for moment, go to src moment.js and just resolve it. For load dash, it's a different way, and blah, 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 blah. And after that, all your import moment, import load dash works. And it's like why we did this way. So it was a question, maybe we had to reuse Node.js module resolution algorithm? No, it works only for particular static imports when everything is defined. For this asynchronous nature, it's like the performance would be absolutely terrible. So after after we define this, it gives you the ability to state like how modules are resolved, and you fully can replicate Node.js behavior. On the other hand, it's like something what I promised you. Nobody likes, just like disability. You don't have ability to put some variables in the path. Everyone likes, just like I want to put, where is my component X, or where is my global, resolution path or whatever. So for this stuff, you need to use dynamic import. I'm a big fan of dynamic import because you can put this in any place in your application. It shouldn't be on global level. You could use, just like something like variables in the path. And the best part, it provides you promise-based syntax, which means, like promise-based API works with async await by default. After that, you can do such tricks. You see, const model, await import, and it's there. So this looks exactly like static import, but gives you much more abilities for you. Okay, and let's take a look into the example. So here is the video. So as you know, just like Bootstrap requires jQuery. So what I want to do, at some point in your application, user clicks a button, open a dialog. Yeah, never before your user needed this dialog. So first time you need to load jQuery, load Bootstrap, which uses jQuery, Bootstrap.js from Twitter. Yeah, just like, and then open the model window. So take a look. So now, as only user just like clicks the button, we invoke an asynchronous function which says download jQuery and execute, then download Bootstrap, and then open model dialog. As only you click it, you see jQuery started loading, then bootstrap, and then actually your particular model is open. You can use this in many cases. You can use this for code splitting. You can use this for polyfills. If something is not supported, please add this support. You can use this for additional pages. Just like user is coming to the next page, so load this page first and then just like produce user. You can use this just like for other third-party scripts, for anything. So mostly for anything you can just imagine. Yeah. And finally, there is not only browser JavaScript, yeah? There is a huge area of Node.js, which is actually for backend, for other ways, whatever. So I tricked you. In Node.js, it's still under the flag. Flag is called experimental modules, whatever. So nobody likes flags, yeah? Despite it works, it's under the flag, so just like nobody likes flag. There is a complete polyfill for Node.js. Now, guys, actually Node.js promising then in 2-3 months they will just like add this in Node.js by default. So now why they're struggling? They want to make sure that whole the community just like will be ready to actually for this particular imports, and this imports like file system from FS works for every just functionality we have in Node.js. So just like in Node.js it's about, I don't remember, hundreds of different, just like utils available out of the box. So just like it's currently they testing this part. And you see also it's funny part. Remember I said you, we need a flag. Similar as for browser scripts, we need a flag for Node.js scripts. How to execute this in strict mode or not in strict mode. So the question was like, what's flag to add to Node.js? And we asked it community, and community said like, okay, there are this option, there is option, and the result was we need to call files MJS. So just like kind of module JavaScript. From the good, it sounds crappy, but from the good things, just like people decided to say this Michael Jackson solution. So yeah, let's call this Michael Jackson solution and go with this, despite it's crappy. Yeah, okay. So Michael Jackson solution is a flag for Node.js to define where is actually module script, where is not module script. And finally, just like if you want to deliver module, just like new new module resolution to Node.js, you have to deliver this also through NPM because it's the biggest registry in the world. Yeah. So how? Previously, you had to use something like main file or main field in package.json or browser field. Main field usually you say where is your bundled version. So if I'm using, like this type module, this Michael Jackson, whatever, this guy will go first just like to the module field and will say, aha, here is this index source MJS, whatever. So it will be executed as module scripts. So now this module field is actually supported in all the popular tools like Webpack, Rollup, whatever here. And I already said you, the nature of module of this ECMAScript modules is different. So they are synchronous, but executed in the again in the order. So we cannot reuse something like dir name, file name, because actually it belongs. It's hard coded the implementation in Node.js to be executed only to be used only for synchronous modules. So we had to add something like import.meta. And now, first of all, I want to describe, it's like, if you use import, just import something, it's a static import. If you use import as a function, it's a dynamic import. If you use import.meta, it's, import is kind of object. So this is done by JavaScript for yourself. Why it's done this way? Because again, we just asked developers voted, here is the result. Just like, so, okay, let's get used to this. It's just like, new era, just like import.meta. If you do type of import, just like your browser on Node.js will say, I have no idea, but import.meta will work. So magic. But anyway, we have an ability to actually to know which actually URL to the file which is currently executed. We can know how actually executed this current file, loaded as import or executed just like as a main file, because it's a huge difference, and if some particular params were set. Do you remember, just for example, for require.js 5 years ago, we added the data main attribute which said from which file to start execution. And here is some example I created just to represent these particular three abilities. So imagine there is test MJS file, all this stuff, I put this in test MJS. What I want to do, if I do execute node test MJS, it will run the tests for the package. If I do import test from test MJS, it will return the configuration for the test config. Yeah. makes sense. Sometimes we're doing this, for example, for unit testing. There is always, for example, we can put some test.json file in the module itself, which actually will describe some specific things, or for build, or for test, whatever. So how it works is test.mjs. First of all, just like I'm loading test.mjs relatively to the current file, because I have import meta URL, which gives me the URL of current file. Then I'm testing, is it the main file or not main file, because I have import meta entry URL, which is actually, if it's the same like import meta URL, done, it's the main file. If it's not the main file, I'm just, just like I'm returning the test config. If it's the main file, I'm checking if something was passed as an option and then applying this option. So you can still work with all these three attributes all together. And finally, JavaScript is bigger than browser, bigger than Node.js. It's much bigger. Today we have different scripts. So for example, web workers and service workers. It's also JavaScript, it's like with tricks and actually how to make it work. Everything what you have to do in your new worker or new service worker, just send a second param type module. After that, you can do this imports, exports, whatever. Everything what you want to do. And after CSS Houdini, I'm just wondering who heard about CSS Houdini. Okay, so CSS Houdini, it's an attempt from big browser developers, from Google, from Safari, whatever, to give you the ability to define CSS. The crappy things, JavaScript moves very fast. We have Babel, we have Webpack, and as only something is proposed, in most of the cases, it's actually implemented immediately. CSS is, way behind. Usually takes half a year, whatever. CSS Houdini is an attempt to say you, okay, you want to define some CSS API or CSS property, there is an API, how it works, and browser actually will work with this. So it's very, it's like very high performance scripts all together, so it's API to expose browser internal things for us developers, They use worklet, which is actually ECMAScript modules by default, because by design it was done this way. Okay, WASM, so just like very popular today. WASM, guys, no? WASM, it's actually the new type of high-performance code. So the idea is just like how to write some scripts, how to port, for example, I don't know, it's like all these Doom games, Doom 3 games or whatever, how to write very high-performant games in still something like JavaScript, how to port C code or just, just like other, just like system languages code to something like JavaScript. And the same, how to make JavaScript work faster. So I just posted a tweet 2 days ago or whatever, guys from WASM organization, they just like added proposal for ECMAScript modules to support not only JavaScript but also WASM modules, which will allow these scripts to be executed maybe with half of performance of C, just like, so can you imagine how fast it is compared to JavaScript? And TypeScript, something very popular. Of course, TypeScript provides you just compile options which let you work with native ECMAScript modules altogether. And performance. Today, performance is essential. Just like if your application is not performant, doesn't matter what you use. You can just like put this, in the bin. So, do you remember HTTP1? You had, it's like every browser or whatever said you can have 3, 5, 6 maximum requests to the same domain at the same time, and that's it. Just it was for performance of HTTP1. So with HTTP2, it's a bit different. It's a binary, first of all, protocol. Secondly, just like as long as you have connections, plus minus, it doesn't matter how many connections is, how many files you're requesting. It's just like they all go in parallel, if possible. So you see, as a result, as only you just like enable HTTP2 for the same actually page, it will be first of all loaded much faster. Secondly, a lot of requests will go in parallel. So HTTP2 is essential. So most of sites already switched to HTTP2. If you didn't, actually, it's time to do this because it's really handy. It's like you include new module, you use HTTP2. Wonderful, because your browsers actually support this. And I wanted to discuss something. So now, previously you loaded 1, maximum 2 bundled files, and it worked. So now, take a look into the demo. I'm loading here load dash as ECMAScript modules. It's 640 files. Take a look. I'm not kidding, it's 640 files. So all these 640 files should be loaded in parallel, whatever, just like, so we can just measure how fast will be one bundled file, except so comparing to 640 files of the same load dash. Honestly, it's the same load dash. Let's take a look in Chrome. You see, it's around 200 milliseconds for one bundled file, like, one load dash, and 640 files, it's around 1 second, so 5 times slower. It hurts, yeah? Yeah, 5 times slower, which means actually, do I need to actually make it make sure that my application can be loaded 5 times slower? No. So, Safari, guys, remember they implemented support for ECMAScript modules the first. Their implementation was done by interns, and then guys with the beards, who very good with optimizations, did some magic. And now this 640 native JavaScript modules executed, just like with the difference maybe, I don't know, just like 30% slower than actually one bundle file or whatever. The matter of performance. As only this, you put some, just like some, I'm sorry, just like capacity, some money to research, here is the result. So, currently, guys from Chrome working on optimization. Their target not slower than, just like 50% slower maximum, not more. So that's their target for the next quarters, and they want to implement this. And of course, there is other tricks. So other tricks, it's like, remember, I described it for you. This how modules are loaded. So first, it's actually, just like dependency graph, then instantiation, then actually evaluation, and take a look into the graph. So here is a graph, just like, for example, something like load dash. So you see, it starts loading modules and then nothing. So what's happening here? Idle cycles of your CPU. So CPU doing nothing. What's happening here? Dependency graph is actually, fully resolved, but now there is execution. So execution just, I'm sorry, here dependency graph is, download this file, that file, that file, that file. No work for CPU. So how we can make it a bit better? Use something like link rel module preload. Similar like, just like what you have for CSS, for JSON, whatever, you can have something like link rel, whatever, yeah? So you can say, you usually have some dependencies like, I don't know, not React, but maybe CommonJS. Maybe you have something else, big dependencies. You can preload them earlier and take a look how graph is changed. First of all, it's faster. As only you saying my big dependencies should be loaded first before it goes to execute the module, you see it will be less idle cycles. Secondary, it will be just like all together, load will be much faster. So take a look. You see here, the load graph is just better. And here is another graph which shows, the fastest way for today still is bundled modules. But we're working on performance, and you see just like unbundled plus module preload is trying to go much more closer to bundled solution. And another trick is, just like, remember I showed you the demo, how we can preload jQuery, how we can preload Bootstrap, but we can do another trick. So just like we can say this link rel module preload, as only browser will have ability to load this particular file, like Node.js, it will load it, and then when actually your user will click button, it will be executed. So this is the way to say, download file, but don't execute till it's needed. So this is very handy altogether. Okay, this is for performance. For unit testing, just like, it's quite easy. For you, everything what you have to do for unit testing, the same, just like events on scripts, actually on load, on error, and other stuff, they work. Just for unit testing, wait till your main file is loaded. And that's it. Just make sure that file is loaded. After that, it will be executed. And finally, migration. How you can migrate? Hopefully, I convince you that there is a lot of, performance optimizations, a lot of security stuff, whatever. How you can migrate? So take a look. When you say script type module, only browsers which support ECMAScript modules will execute this file. So, for example, Internet Explorer 9 and whatever, all these guys will say, I have no idea what is type module. I'm skipping this line. I don't even download this file. But all the browsers which support ECMAScript modules, as only they see attribute no module, they say, aha, this is not for me. I have to ignore this. Here, you're supposed to put your bundled modules. So what you do? Currently, you have these bundled modules, which actually work. Yeah, you say no module, no behavior is changed. So all the browsers which don't support ECMAScript modules still will download this particular line, this particular file, and don't do anything. And all your other stuff, for example, you have entry file for your webpack or whatever. You add the script type module and then src to your entry file, and you are done. Of course, you can sort some other stuff, remember just which I described it, path, package names, whatever, but you actually on the path to upgrade. And I want to show you a few proven, usages of ECMAScript modules. Lodash ECMAScript modules. So, for example, they were added 1 year ago or whatever. You see, now they have more than 1.5 million downloads per week, and it works. It's all these ECMAScript modules all together. I move with my a few my projects. I will show you on the next slides. And Polymer. This guy Polymer is used in YouTube, and on YouTube they using just like ECMAScript modules as well. So they just like adding this more and more. They currently using in a lot of places. Dynamic loading, and now just like in beta we have native ECMAScript modules, so I'm waiting till it comes to us. Okay, and here is actually my site. You see here I want to show you I'm using this module preload to make sure that talks that data.js will be loaded before. I'm also using, you see, just like migration, so just like my bundled module. Actually here you see bundled, I added attribute no module, and here is my entry module which I use it just like for Webpack. It was main.js. I added type module. Mostly that's it. And all new browsers will do something like this. So you see, first of all, talks data.js was loaded before because we used module preload. Browser is smart. After only it comes to this main.js, which includes this imports, import this, import that. You see, they in order actually started executing by your browser. That's how it works. So you see, quite easy to do. Okay, let's put all this together. So first of all, great support. You saw everything is green. Everything is green. For Node.js you have polyfill, whatever, yeah? How to include? We need this flags. Flag is actually for browsers is type module, and for Node.js is Michael Jackson solution. So just use Michael Jackson solution, have fun. No modules for no-module attribute for migration. You saw how you can do this with old and new browsers, which actually support or don't support. And HTTP2 is for performance optimization together with link module preload, so which will give you performance boost altogether. Simplified configuration, native debugging, all this will be given for free. And the question will be, of course, is it ready for huge enterprise projects? Let's wait till Chrome guys will implement all this, just like performance optimizations, which will be similar to Safari, whatever. In this case, I will answer yes. For now, let's wait till Chrome doing their magic. And here is actually a link to the presentation itself. You can subscribe, actually follow me on Twitter, take a look into my blog where I also describe a few things on this native ECMAScript modules. And actually that's it, guys, for today. Thank you.